Hello, everyone. Good morning from a slightly grey and drizzly morning here. I'm hoping everyone who's joining us are feeling well in themselves. Just wondering if those who are connecting in at the moment, just give me a thumbs up if you can hear and see me okay. Thank you. That's helpful. That's great. Nice to see so many people popping in there. So we have an opportunity together today to meditate together and reflect upon the Dhamma. Special greetings and hello to Porter and Gail. I can see your question there, Porter, so I'll definitely get to that. Jayasara and I were teaching a residential retreat last weekend locally, which went well, but delayed our connection online. But here we are. And some of those people I can see are there on today's stream. So I'll just wait a couple of minutes for people who are running late before we start the meditation. And just to reflect a little bit on Dhamma. So it's easy to conceive of meditation as something special, something that, we have to prepare ourselves for in some way or set up special circumstances for. And in the beginning, certainly it can be like this. But ultimately, our practice, our way of being with experience really is, the meditation sessions are let's say, the contrived ways of practicing to some extent. We choose an object of meditation, like the breath or the body. We have a period of time. We may do certain practices within that space or stay with the simplicity of one meditation object, or simply just try to rest with silence and stillness. But really, this way of being and the wisdom and understanding we glean from it, we take into our everyday activity and our life just as it unfolds. And for a lot of people, at first that feels really quite difficult. But the sense of difficulty arises mostly because we think we should be having a special state or special circumstances, that we shouldn't be having so many thoughts in the mind or so much stress arising. But ideally, we turn our attitude to seeing that everything that arises in the space of our awareness is worthy of our awareness, is worthy of being with, whether it feels painful or pleasant. I say worthy just because usually the unpleasant aspects of life, the things we don't want, stress, everything stressful is painful, including physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain. And it's quite natural that the body and the mind would, resist that and would rather it not be there. But right here is what we have to learn to awaken to. Just that extra stress of the, whether it's subtle or obvious, of the wishing it were otherwise, the wanting it to be otherwise. And to see that really opening to the way it is the very portal of awakening. And since I'm on the topic, Porter and Gail's question earlier about working with intense physical pain, especially as we approach death and with physical illness. Personally, I've worked with some intense pain in my life, but it hasn't necessarily been to the degree that some people can experience. So I can only speak from my own experience. So not to say that we fail every time we find ourselves in resistance to pain. It's not about that, because the body and the mind, it's very sensitive situation. But just to, whether we're resisting, we find ourselves resisting and contracting and wishing it were otherwise, we wake up to that as much as we also can recognize those times of acceptance and openness. And we'll be going through periods where there's intense resistance to pain or stress of any kind, and then there may be times of acceptance. We even accept this ebb and flow of the way it is. Waking up to just the way it is. Letting go of ideas of right and wrong, good and bad, perfection, imperfection, success, failure, if those ideas emerge in any way. Opening to the imperfection of everything. One of the characteristics of all conditioned existence, the Buddha reminds us, is that nothing is perfect. And it's not within our control. Conditioned arisings are not within our control. So removing that subtle notion that we can somehow control it. We can somehow turn the unpleasant into pleasant, or at least equanimous. No, it is just as it is. And it's okay as it is. Or it can be okay just as it is. This subtle notion that somehow I haven't quite got it right, or things aren't quite right, can really be that deeper stress. And for spiritual practitioners in particular, we can uncover this quite fine striving to be perfect, to be good, without blemish, without fault or whatever. It's for all of us. That's how it is. That's the striving of the ego. But for spiritual practitioners, we have very high ideals in terms of perfection or accomplishment. Or achieving full awakening, or however it might present itself. Accepting the imperfection, the dukkha of conditioned existence as just the way it is. We can free the heart from this unnecessary stress. And in that openness and acceptance, we can find that freedom purely in what's called that self-existing wakefulness, true nature of the mind, natural awareness. Whether pleasure comes, whether pain comes, that essential openness, transparency and wakefulness of the mind is ever present. Whether liking or disliking comes, wanting or not wanting comes, they're all part of conditioned arisings. Seeing the natural great perfection is seeing the essential wakeful aspect of mind as not needing anything. So hopefully those few words are helpful. And with that, let's move into the guided meditation. So exactly where you find yourself and how you find your experience, this is the place of awakening. Awareness is nowhere else. And the so-called meditation session and guidance is just about helping us to recognize that, to rest into this ever-present nature of being. For a time, we remove the need to attend to outer activities. Recognizing bodily experience as it appears right now, as it's experienced right now, can be a help for grounding mental energy of thinking if it's moving quite quickly. Because we are very used to stoking the fires of mental activity in our modern life. So recognize we can let that fire cool for a time by giving attention to physical experience. Just being aware of the shape of the body, the posture, and the essential movement of the in and out breathing. If one finds that one's bodily experience at the moment is quite unpleasant and hard to be with, perhaps as an experiment, just see if there may be one part of one's physical body, one's physical experience, that may be quite neutral, at least neutral. If not a little pleasant. It may be the sense of resting back, leaning onto something that feels comfortable. It may be the feeling of the out-breath, relaxing with the out-breath. Or one can even shift and put your attention on the space in the room around you. Or if you have a view from a window, you can just resting your gaze on the greenness of foliage or the space of the sky, if that's within your visual range. Finding an object of meditation where it feels okay to rest your attention for some time in full awareness. Learning how to rest attention. It's something that takes a little while to learn because attention is to some degree a conditioned process of mind, and it flits to different sense stimulus. The desire or searching in the mind, searching for something to land on that's at least has some degree of restfulness or pleasure to it. The mind searches for stimulus that is pleasant. This is a conditioned pattern. And it moves away from anything perceived as unpleasant, loses awareness in its search for something else. But just becoming aware of that movement of mind, what I call the push-pull, the wanting, not wanting. It's not necessarily conscious, but waking up to that is already coming into touch with pure presence. Relaxing the searching into the now to find that there's nothing you need to search for. And from within that space, where there's nothing we need search for, conditioned thoughts will arise. Some will distract us and have us run with them in associated thinking. And we simply learn to wake up to that tendency. Then thinking and the proliferation about past, future, or fantasy disappears in the instant of your waking, of your reconnecting with now, with presence, with nature of mind. And you remember, oh yeah, there's nothing right now we need to do. But learn to rest in this ever-present awareness. Grow confidence in the fact that there's nothing you need search for, and there's nothing you need to push away. And keeping the meditation simple. Just becoming aware of any stress that appears in body or mind, contraction or pressure, anxiety or confusion, doubt, uncertainty. Just knowing the movement is movement, and in the knowing, seeing the dissolution, the stilling of that movement. Whatever is present, it is welcome. And it can be seen just for what it is in the fleeting movements of mind and body. The shimmering, changing movement of light on the water. No need to force attention to stick with one experience or another, or even to try to hold on to the sense of awareness or knowing or presence. For this natural knowing is naturally present, aware in and of itself. In many ways in our life, the mind has been conditioned to get things, to achieve things, to accomplish things, and feel some degree of satisfaction in that. So it's conditioned to search in a similar way, even when we sit still. The subtle desire for wanting to accomplish, to get, to succeed, to feel somehow satiated on a conditioned level, to have something to show for our work, for our striving. But really, there's nothing that you can get a hold of that is permanent, that is lasting. Momentary success, momentary accomplishment, momentary satiety. Until we discover in letting that movement relax. That there is an inherent satiety in just being. And that sense of satiety is not necessarily in the fact of being, but rather in the way of non-clinging, non-grasping. This makes no sense to the intellect, to the rational mind. So thoughts might arise to question how this can be so. And we simply see that as the arising of a thought, doubt, uncertainty, and letting it dissolve into the space of awareness itself. So as we draw this meditation to a close, just establishing yourself in full awareness, even as we end this meditation session, and opening one's eyes, welcoming the display of the visual field around you. Notice if there's a sense of subject arising more strongly with regard this body and its relative location with things in the visual world. Recognize too in that transition that awareness itself doesn't change. Isn't lost with the end of meditation. Is never lost. Always present to be recognized. So we have an opportunity now for some questions and responses. Anything about your own practice, or the meditation experience, feel free to write a question into the chat and we'll see how far we can get with those questions. So just go back to the beginning. Just to come back to Gail and Porter's question about any tips on being with intense physical pain. And although I addressed that before the meditation, I just thought to add a couple of other reflections, because Lama Yeshe came to mind. Lama Yeshe was a much loved teacher in Mahayana tradition, Vajrayana tradition. And he died quite young. He had heart problems. I think he might have only been in his early 40s, though I may be mistaken. But I remember reading some of his reflections when he was in hospital, and and there were some of his letters that were published that he wrote to his own, whether they were whether it was a letter to one of his teachers or one of his Dharma brothers. But he was expressing how he was experiencing intense pain, that he'd never experienced anything like it, and he was asking for advice. And the teacher wrote back to him. As I say, it may have been a Dharma brother that he respected, or it may have been a teacher of his. But in the time, it was definitely a teaching. He reminded him that when he's feeling this pain, to remember all sentient beings who are feeling pain. who are in the process of dying. And for the sake of them, to dedicate his practice. May this pain that I'm being with and working with, that's challenging me, may somehow it be for the benefit of all beings, that my experience is not in vain. And wishing, not just for myself, but ultimately at the deepest level, may all beings be free from suffering. So this, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but this teaching is helping us to connect, whether we're in emotional pain, physical pain, helping us to connect with the fact that many other beings and all beings will come to a similar experience and may feel similarly challenged and at times bereft. But to remember the predicament of all sentient beings is connecting us. We come out of that sense of isolation that pain, mental, physical, or emotional, can create. So it's a kind of a tonglen. And to turn our practice into that which benefits all sentient beings. So as we breathe in with this pain and breathe out with this pain, however we experience it, may my practice, may my capacity to be present with this be of benefit for all beings. May all beings be free from suffering. And Lama Yeshe expressed how helpful he found that teaching and that practice. So you might want to explore this too, Porter, and also Gail and all of us who find ourselves in similar predicaments. It can be surprising how such a thing can help. So yes, of course, using medications to help with pain, as someone was also suggesting. Of course, we don't want to resist those things that can be helpful. So someone asks, I've been meditating on emptiness, intellectually grasped and realized deeply, but I'm struggling to align with it. Can you help me? We can have experiences of touching into what we call emptiness, and then our life circumstances or our life experience, we somehow lose touch with that. And I think, the masters are telling us, as I was pointing to in the meditation, this empty awareness is ever present. It's nowhere else. But the times we feel like we can't find it, it's usually we're looking for it somewhere else. You mentioned intellectually grasped. So we can actually have an idea of what it is, a memory based on that previous experience, and we're subtly looking for it somewhere else. So this is a constructed or conditioned mind that's projecting an idea of it elsewhere. And in that moment, we've forgotten that it's ever present. So aligning with is just recognizing perhaps that meditation helped you a little bit, recognizing the search for it elsewhere, the resistance to what is right here and now. So very resistance or closing off to this, to presence right here, right now. And that closing off happens when we're looking for something else, or we're resisting what is to some degree. So aligning is about remembering that, letting go of the wanting of something else, opening, welcoming what's present, being with, and you discover your natural state right there. So this process of what seems like forgetting and remembering is the path. We forget, we remember. And, it manifests in different ways, but essentially it is, as I say, a kind of a forgetting, a cutting off, seemingly cutting off through the searching or the looking elsewhere. It's like the proverbial the stories that get taught in different ways, but like you have a jewel underneath your pillow, or you're sitting on a treasure box, but you don't realize it, and so we look elsewhere for the jewel or the treasure. But the discovery is waking up to the fact that it's right here, never was anywhere else. That's the alignment, that's the realigning. So I hope that helps. How to actually be when feeling pain. One just feels pain. One notices the feeling is unpleasant. Pain is usually unpleasant. And there's such a deep resistance to it, we might find it hard to be with that unpleasantness, but we feel the resistance, wake up to resistance, breathe with it. Recognize that the body, mind is contracting in the face of this unpleasant feeling. And we invite ourselves to breathe with that, just as it is. So use this inquiry, can I just breathe with this, just as it is, in this moment? One in-breath, one out-breath. And then we discover what it is to be with that. So this has to be explored, has to be experimented with. It's because it can only be accomplished in that interaction, not just through thinking. So we have to gain this intuitive understanding. But the thoughts that help us remember, can I breathe with this, as a thought, an inquiry, that helps us enter into the place of intuitive understanding. So someone is saying that they've practiced holding their breath for short intervals, which has really helped them a lot in regard to anxiety sensations. Yeah, so there's, whether it's holding your breath or regulating your breathing, doing deep breathing, or pranayama in some sense of breath retention, regulated breath retention and long out breaths. These practices can also be helpful. And what's really happening in there is you're bringing quite a strong mindfulness and presence and overriding the reactivity that causes the anxiety and the breath to perhaps be out of control. So bringing attention and attention and mindfulness and regulating breath for a time can indeed be helpful. So very good. I did also mention or take in one of my guided meditations addressing anxiety, befriending anxiety is using some of that regulated breathing, breathing in for a certain number of seconds and breathing out. This can be very helpful. When I fix my mind on an object for a long time, I start having visions, and I don't know if I should focus where the visions came from or just keep focusing on the object in the mind. So maybe experiment with just softening your focus on the particular object. It may be that there's too much intensity or trying or concentrating on the object. So keeping the object in mind with the broad field of awareness. So a much softer sense of awareness, whether the object's the in-breath and out-breath sensations. Just softening the intensity of focus, even though it remains your primary focus. Let the field of awareness, so it's like this broad holding rather than an intense focus. I would not search for where the visions came from. Ajahn Chah and other teachers I'm aware of in the forest tradition would recommend not following up on any internal or external visions, but just seeing their appearance like any other appearance, but not giving them undue attention. Generally, the instruction is to stay with your meditation object. But as I said, perhaps just soften the intensity and recognize the field of awareness within which this object is present. In the morning, when I wake up and meditate, I notice my mind is extra busy and emotional and feral. Is it better to meditate when the mind is naturally calmer? For me, in the evening. Okay, that's interesting. Most people would find, generally speaking, their mind is calmer after waking, after sleeping, and perhaps more active in the evening after a day of activity or work. But you find the opposite, which is fine. I would say, you can meditate at both times. It doesn't have to be either or. We think that, meditation, we must always become peaceful, and that's a successful meditation. But a meditation with a feral mind, just being aware of feral mind, and noticing how it spins, bringing awareness to that can be equally as beneficial. So I would encourage both, a little practice in the morning as well as the evening. It's great that they're different, working with different conditions, but they are both. They both can be very beneficial both times. So someone there is suggesting various inquirers to look up Buteyko breathing. I learned a lot about Theravada suttas last year and recently learned about Mahayana practices. I can experience jhana and rigpa. How should I train? Top-down Mahayana or bottom-up Theravada? It's very much up to the individual, what you feel drawn to, what you feel makes sense to you, and how your practice is proceeding. You can also incorporate both practices. It doesn't have to be either or, up or down, this way or that. Really, they're essentially engaging the same spiritual factors of mind. They're just different conceptual paradigms and ways of conceiving path and practice, but eventually they meet at the same place of awareness here and now. So, if you can experience jhana, why not develop that? I mean, jhana, it can be extremely helpful for freeing the mind from the hindrances and kilesa temporarily, so that even after periods of jhana, the mind can be open and lucid. So this is a perfect time for then, recognizing Rigpa in your everyday life, your everyday activity. Rigpa being the luminous awareness, the recognition of luminous awareness, or as the different ways we can talk about that. The natural wakefulness of mind, ever-present awareness. Insight can arise from the mind that has calm and clarity more easily. It doesn't always arise directly out of calm and clarity, but it has, there's greater chance, depending on the view, depending on how you're framing your experience and whether you can see or not that you're framing your experience in one particular way or another. So, is Rigpa just samadhi, or is the sense of no I and the lack of clinging in that state similar or different from nibbana? Nibbana is non-clinging. Nibbana is the attitude, the experience, the mind of non-clinging. When clinging is completely done with, that is nibbana. When we have moments of non-clinging, we get a glimpse of that freedom. Is Rigpa just samadhi? Rigpa is more clarity. One can say there's a moment of samadhi in that seeing, if it's momentary, or continuing, if it's continuing for time, that clarity. But really it's a fusion of, say, the calm and clarity. We can have samadhi without wisdom. It is possible to have a deeply concentrated mind without the liberating wisdom arising. And this is so whether you're looking through the lens of the Theravada, Mahayana, or Vajrayana. Feeling non-stop anxiety because of a state of love one can't do more about. No matter how much trying to change perception or be or even feel, it doesn't go away. So I kind of make of that question that if it is a question, maybe it's just a statement. Sounds like you're having anxiety because of a state of love. Maybe you had fallen in love, but it's not working out one way or another. And that's really just within the anxiety, there is the clinging to wanting things to be different than the way they are, and taking the experience, turning the experience into something deeply personal, effective of the I, me, mine. It can take time. If there's feeling of hurt, pain at that emotional level, it's okay to let it be as it is. It actually doesn't diminish your perfection, your natural perfection. So, getting through some of this, I think some people are answering other people's questions. I'm not sure what's exactly for me, but there's quite a bit. So I'm going to try and pick and choose. Okay, lots of people commenting to each other, so I'm just trying to find the questions for myself. If the true self is one and universal, who gets reincarnated? The conditioned activity of mind. The Buddha said that the cause of rebirth in this very life and in any other life that may ensue is ignorance, karma, and craving. So there's not necessarily a who in there that has to be traversing that spectrum of life to life, but rather the momentum, the karmic momentum of ignorance, which is avijja, which is also marigpa, not knowing, unawareness, conditioning karmic activity, that is actions of body, speech, and mind from a place of unawareness and not knowing the truth of the way things are, and craving, that constant searching for satiety somewhere else, somewhere else, somewhere else, somewhere else, keeps us in the spin. Ignorance, karma, and craving working together keeps the mind moving here and now and into any other birth. But we don't have to believe in some other birth or some other reincarnation. We can verify that onward movement here and now as the causes and conditions in the mind that propel. It's just energy moving, energy being propelled. As long as the fire is stoked with more fuel, it'll keep burning. When you stop stoking it, the Buddha said, the embers become cool. Becoming cool is the essence of the meaning of Nibbana. No longer running, no longer searching for something out there. Something in the future that you never get to, because that's not where satiety is. Hey Wendy, good to see you here too. Glad you enjoyed last weekend's retreat. The deeper my practice gets, I realize some relationships in my life don't support my path. I'm having a hard time letting go of some of them. Do I distance myself from them or embrace the teachings? Why not embrace the teachings? You don't necessarily have to distance yourself from things in your life, but if you yourself decide that certain things and relationships aren't particularly beneficial, you may decide to take certain steps. It's not for me to say what's right or wrong. It's really your choice. But sometimes, these things unfold naturally. You don't have to push anything away, but sometimes you do have to make some changes when you realize that what you're putting your energy into is not beneficial for yourself or others. But careful about getting too locked into, just my path and what serves me, because really the intention on the path is what benefits oneself and others, what benefits others and oneself. And, it's not all about me. And yet, our life unfolds often by the choices we make. So perhaps my advice is you don't have to force anything, but know that if your intention is to grow in the Dharma, things will unfold in a natural way, and it may not feel like you have to make dramatic choices, but just set the wholesome intentions in your heart and mind, and things will unfold in a way that will support you. So Nisargadatta says to give up everything, but I am 30 years and scared that I'm too young to give up, rather than trying in work, relationship and life. Yeah, so giving up everything, when it's not necessarily, you don't take it too literally, like you have to give up your life, your relationship, your work. If that comes naturally, that's fine. Nisargadatta still lived where he worked and taught from his home. He didn't uproot from his home life and go to a cave somewhere to give it all up, but he talked from that inner space of giving it all up means not clinging. So there is life, there is work, there are relationships, but the non-clinging to them. The not trying to control them too much is the giving it up. The giving it up is the not holding, the not clinging. This is the holding and the clinging that puts stress on the heart and mind. So it's not a disregarding either. It's actually, bringing a lot of awareness and love and heart to our life, our work, our relationships is the path. Bringing awareness and love can be as much non-clinging. So the path is here and now with however our life is. And if there's suffering, if you're feeling stressed and suffering right there, that's the indicator that there's some clinging. So it's not about throwing it all away and running away. That's the opposite of the path. But looking into the heart and saying, is it possible to relax around this, to let it go? So this is the exploration you need to engage in. How does one move from recognizing spacious awareness consistently to the realization of unity? You don't have to move from one to the other. The insight will happen by itself when all the factors, the spiritual factors are ripe. You can't make insight happen, but when we learn to recognize a spacious awareness fairly consistently, the empty nature of that, the not self nature of that, when we learn to see how stress arises and how it's released, then there is a realization of what you call realization of unity, or non-separation, or non-clinging. Non-clinging is non-separation. You have to trust that this will come by itself in its own time. You can't force any of this. So in a way, the Buddha's teaching, the paradigm of the Four Noble Truths, is very pertinent. So we're not, just trying to make an insight of non-clinging happen, but we actually have to work with that point where stress arises in our life, because right there we need to look. Right there is the First Noble Truth. But right there is where stress ceases. And if we're present for that, insight can happen. Insight into that release and recognizing the unconditioned nature can happen. If we're not looking in the right spot, we've got some idea of moving from here to there, conceiving things. Even if they're conceiving spiritual things, we're still trapped in conceptual projection. So really learning how to be intuitively with things as they arise is where insight can unfold. Is spaciousness the same as awareness? Yes, it can be. And many masters talk about the basic space of awareness, or the nature of awareness being like space, and talk about in Dzogchen the unity of basic space or spaciousness, the spaciousness of mind and awareness itself, the not two-ness. And the spaciousness in some of these paradigms can be expressed as emptiness as well. There's no thing there to be found. The natural space of the mind, no thingness. So in this sense, it can be talked about as the same, and in other senses, it can be talked about as slightly different, depending on the paradigm. So we can recognize the natural spaciousness of mind, but there might not be a full recognition of awareness, pervasive as space. So, but when we recognize space, then we have the subtlety to recognize the essential knowing nature of the mind that pervades that space. So it can be a stepping stone, perception of space and spaciousness, to recognizing awareness. And Dzogchen masters talk about the not two-ness of that space, emptiness, awareness. They're a unity. Even though the mind may discern spaciousness distinct from awareness, they can't be separated. What would you recommend when it comes to actually working with emotional, energetical root of the intense sensations, although always having awareness in the base. Breathing with, mindfully breathing with the emotional, energetical, intense sensations is what I would recommend. Letting them be as they are, but breathing with them. Not forcing oneself to breathe with, but inquiring, can I breathe with this just as it is? I've been wondering about letting go of people who no longer want to be in my life or who keep pushing me away. I wake up in the morning with an intense love in my heart for them, not a pain, but peace. Seems like half a question or a statement. If people don't want to be in your life, let them go, let them be. They keep pushing you away, but you wake up in the morning with an intense love for them, not a pain but peace. Then you can maintain that love for them. If they want to be close, if they want to be far, let that be as it is. Love doesn't depend on proximity or whether they're close or near or far. Why impose yourself if they don't want your presence? Now, this would be different if these are adolescents or young kids, not adults, or even if they're young adults and you sense they're reacting to something. You have to find what works well, what's appropriate as a parent, and sometimes that's just a bit of experimenting, give and take. As long as your heart's at peace, it's a good sign. So, deep gratitude for your teachings. Possible to share into an experience which came forth in meditation where the whole field rolled forward upon itself. Not sure if you're asking, is it possible to share it? Yes. Yes, it would be. Very good. I already have a great Theravada teacher. Are there any Mahayana teachers that you believe can guide one on the path? Too many to mention. Do both Buddhist paths truly lead to the same place? In terms of freedom and awakening, yes. You know, Mahayana teachers, Venerable Jayasara's Channel Wisdom of the Masters is full of great Mahayana, Vajrayana teachers there, and there's so much that's been published, and there's plenty who are alive today. So, yes, people, of course, can communicate with us via our email. You're welcome. We can't always, we do get flooded with a fair bit of correspondence that we can't always keep up with, but if you'd like to send an email, you can. That's pre-Bitcoin, PH, re-Bitcoin, red Bitcoin. That's your question. Does fasting influence spirituality, and is it important? Well, fasting can influence your mind state and bodily state. Whether or not it's beneficial for you spiritually, that's only something you can know. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a part of the path, But fasting, you can get a chance to look at the desire for food. So that can be helpful. This is my first time joining. When do you go live? Which days? On our website, you'll find the dates and times. We usually do it once every 3 weeks. But that changes a bit as we're doing other things from time to time. So we always advertise the date on our website, but generally every 3 weeks. And the Wisdom of the Masters channel will also post when one is going to happen. Okay. Can you please speak to the experience of the field rolling forward? I'm not really sure about what you mean, the field rolling forward. Did I say that? I talk about the field of awareness, but it doesn't roll anywhere. Can spiritual teachings become an obstacle in the path at some point? If you cling to them, definitely. If you're conceptually fixated on them, definitely. If you misunderstand them, definitely. How to recognize when going for more and more teaching is just a way to avoid meeting the world and reality directly. It sounds like you already have a sense that could be happening. You know, like anything else, we want to consume teachings, consume knowledge. It can be an addiction. You know, just like we want to consume things on the internet, scrolling, or consume things through eating, or consume things through shopping, or getting things. You know, the intellect can be like that too. We want to consume more and more knowledge, thinking it's somehow satisfying a need. It can just be desire operating at some other level, on the conceptual level. So we have to look. The teachings, in most cases, teachings pointing to the truth are very simple and direct. But if we've not yet comprehended the path, then naturally we want to study a bit more and learn a bit more. So this is a good thing. But we have to learn to apply it. When we find something that makes sense, we apply it, we practice it. If there's still not clear understanding, we seek more teachings to clarify that. And that's okay. That's good. That's part of how the path unfolds. But if you find yourself just obsessively consuming more and more of the teachings, then we just look into that. Is this useful? Or is it just crowding the mind out with more concepts? What is the essential? What is essential here? What needs to be applied in order to wake up, in order to be free from that unnecessary stress? Can you apply what you already know in the moments when stress arises in your heart, in your life? That's where the real teaching and path is right where stress is arising. How are you with that? Can you apply wisdom with that? So our website is vivekahermitage.com. You can find more resources on our website. And if you need to contact us, then you'll find our email address there. How do you stop yourself trying to gain everything through knowledge? Just be aware of it. It's just the desire mind in that moment. As I say, it's not a bad thing at all to want to understand the Dharma, to want to understand things, but you have to question how much of it, especially nowadays with internet, we can consume so much, how much of it is necessary, how much is beneficial, how much is helpful, and how much is really needed to release the heart from suffering. Go to the essence, go to the point. When did you find or realize you had no more questions to ask? Sometimes there's no more questions. Sometimes a question arises. And sometimes that question is answered in the arising. Sometimes I feel I need to know something and I go looking, and then I can't be bothered reading because it's just all this bump. Forget about it. But for a long time, for many years, I looked into books to gain a comprehensive understanding of the Dharma, but it was in tandem with looking into the heart. What does this mean in the heart right now, in the moment? If it's legitimate knowledge, it transfers to the heart. You can see it here and now. And this is where it's comprehended. This is where it stays, not through remembering, but through wisely reflecting and wisely understanding. Is this notion of the Bodhisattva path in the Mahayana school rooted in conceit? Not at all. Not at all. But the comparisons that go on, that this path is better than that path, or that is a lesser and that is a greater, that tends to be rooted in conceit. But the Bodhisattva path, we're all Bodhisattvas. You wouldn't be here if you weren't Bodhisattva. Bodhi, Sattva is being, and Bodhi is awakening, awakened, or awakening. We're all awakening beings. Mahayana points directly to the truth of the Buddha nature of all beings, essentially ever present, beyond conceit. The unrealized, unawakened beings can start comparing this and that, right and wrong, good and bad. I'm better than you, you're whatever. No need to judge. I feel like the time has come to start listening to the personal internal guru, but it scares me very much. Any advice? Looks like now complete silence is required. And I must say I fear. Well, that's just all a feeling. It's an intense feeling right now in what you're expressing. Definitely silence is helpful, but sometimes your life supports silence and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you have a great longing for silence, then if it's possible that you can allow yourself to go there, then that's a good thing. But don't make it something that you have to enforce, to force your life one way or another. And the inner guru is prompting us all the time. We just don't know it. Sometimes it's projected outwardly into outer gurus, but you wouldn't understand what's being pointed to by anything you read or hear if it wasn't for the mirror of the internal guru understanding. the inner wisdom. So just, don't be too harsh and forceful about how things develop. Just trust in the process. It's always helpful to get guidance externally as well, tuning in, listening to teachings, as long as it's not done obsessively. But even if you find yourself doing it obsessively, that's a moment of waking up, So trust the process. Okay, we're winding up soon. Best way to get rid of fear is to let go of the desire to get rid of it. It's equally a desire to want to be rid of things, pushing things away. And it's quite naturally that we don't want to feel fear, but any resistance, non-acceptance of it just allows it to dig in deeper, opening to the experience of fear in the moment, letting it subside that way. And I don't quite understand this question. When you found that all living things have a to and away response, I think all things arise and cease, come and go, was an experience of wonder. There can be, if this is a level of insight. Ah, yes, all that arises ceases, everything that it comes goes. This can be, it sounds very simple, but when you really grok it, it can be quite a profound shift. And letting go. And as you say, there can be an opening of the mind, so it feels like wonder in that letting go. Any advice for a young man dealing with unskillful thought, prejudice towards people, addictive patterns? Seeing unskillful thought as unskillful thought and letting it go right there. Not blaming yourself, not blaming others, just breathing with, letting go. It comes and goes by itself, but it's our attachment that keeps it in play. So letting go on the out breath. Seeing the addictive patterns when they're there. Breathing with, letting go. Turning your mind to something more beneficial, more useful. So this is a way we can practice. There are resources on our meditative guidance and resources on our website you can tune into to help with that. Okay. So just to say, no, this face is not Samaneri Jayasara. This is Ayya Jitindriya. Jayasara is away on retreat at the moment, but she'll do the next live stream in about 3 weeks' time. So if you're just tuning in and thinking that I'm Jayasara, I'm not. I'm the sister nun in Viveka Hermitage, and we share these live streams. Okay, we're going to wind up now. How do you get past knowing what to do to putting what you know is right into action? Practice. You just practice doing it. Seize the moment. Terrific. Got to the end of our questions. So thank you all for joining today and for your questions. And as I say, Samaneri Jayasara will do the live stream. I'm pretty sure it'll be in 3 weeks' time. So I hope you can join us for that. And in the meantime, I send all my good wishes and blessings to you all. May you be well. May you be at peace. May you be free from suffering. Trust your own awareness has everything that's needed here and now. Take good care, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.